Welcome to the first video on classes. This is your first introduction to object-oriented programming. Now what I'd like for you to do is to look at this and ignore, for the first time, just ignore the comments. Because actually what you see here, even though it looks like, wow, what is all this? This is very straightforward. If you understand what you did in structures, doing a class is really no different. The concept is no different from that of a structure. What's different are the reserved words that are used. Like, for example, instead of using struct here, I use class. And then what I've done here is that I've given it an identifier. I called it a monster class. The other thing that's new is this keyword public. And notice that it ends in a colon, not a semicolon, colon. We'll talk about the reason for that, but for now just know that it's there. Look what I've done. I've made three variable decorations just like I did before with structures, a string, and I gave it an identifier of name and a data type int. I gave it an identifier of age and string. Race was a string. Okay, so and then I ended this with the closing brace and a semicolon. So this part here, with the exception of some identifiers, the structure of it is exactly the same as a structure. It's no different. So it should be that what I do down here, I've created effectively a new identifier, monster class, as I did up here, just like I did with a structure. And then what I do is I make a variable declaration. I'm calling it my monster. And I should be able to do the same thing with this variable as I did with a structure. For example, I had inside here, I had string name, I had init age, and I had string race. So I can do the same thing. My monster.name, just as if it were a structure. I'm going to call him Fred. My monster.age, 14. My monster.race, he's the dunks. And so I can do a cout with a system pause. So let's assume that it's just like a structure, which essentially it is, except for some key terms. And let's go up here and I'll compile it, and we should get what we expect on the output. And there it is, Fred 14, the dunks, and press any key to continue. Okay, now let's go back to the hard stuff. This is why I think object-oriented programming is confusing to students. It's not because of the concept, because it's just like a structure with the key terms. It's because of what they're called. Like, for example, up here, this is called the class declaration. Well, that's not too hard. It's sort of like a variable declaration where you're declaring a variable like you do here. So class, monster class, okay, that's cool. This can be any legal C++ identifier. All right, I'm cool with that. Now, this weird dude here that says public, this is called the access specifier. All right, I'm sort of cool with that because there's another access specifier called private. Now, why they have it, we don't know that yet, but we will. If we look at this right here, these are class members, and we are this is a class member variable declaration. So every time we make a variable declaration within the class, it's called a class member. So this class, monster class, has three members. They are name of data type string, age of data type init, and race of data type string. Now, here's the rub. The above are referred to as the properties of the class. So we say that these three members are the properties that this class has. This class has the property of name, age, and race. Now, you ready for the rest? Here we go. This is where we simply set up and declared a variable my monster, a new data type. This is called the class object creation. So I've created an object. My monster now becomes an object of the class monster class. My monster is now an object of monster class. A little bit confusing. It's just the terminology. This is called the instantiation of the class. I can hardly pronounce this word. But if someone says, when you do this with a class, what are you doing? Well, you're doing no more than declaring a variable of that particular data type that was made by your definition up here. So this word that I can hardly pronounce, that's what that means. That's what that is when you do this. Okay. Now here the object members are initialized. The members of this object now, my monster, are going to be my monster.name, my monster.age, my monster.race, and we of course named Fred 14 into dunks, and that's it. So what's important about this is to know how to set this up, but also what's just equally important is to understand the vocabulary. What do the terms mean? Because if you're on a job interview and you tell somebody, I've had object-oriented programming, they may start asking, okay, what's a class member? Well, the class member is nothing more than a variable declaration within the definition of the class. All of this right here is the definition of the class. And they might ask you, well, what are the properties? Well, the properties are all of the class definitions. It has 3 properties. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.